Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Gettysburg College for another edition of Facebook Live. We're glad you can join us this afternoon. My name is Braden Snyder, and today we're joined by senior Collin Bergey of the Bullets men's track and field team, which competed in its first meet of the season back in December, but starts the season in earnest this weekend at the Lehigh University John Covert Classic. Collin is a health sciences major from Zionsville, Pennsylvania, and a team tri-captain this season. He specializes in the sprints and has been a finalist at the Centennial Conference Outdoor Championships in both the 200 and the 400 each of the past two seasons. So welcome, Collin, and thanks for taking your time out this afternoon. So the team has been practicing since back in the fall, I guess, and just how things have been going so far. What are your impressions of the team so far?
I think the team is coming along pretty well. We've had a lot of new freshmen this year, and they're really taking to it. I think we're going to have a pretty good year ahead of us if we keep up the way we've been working.
Well, your season officially started back in the fall, as we mentioned. Then you had a meet in December, early December. And then you had a long layoff, no meets or practices for about 6 weeks. I'm just wondering, how do you stay sharp over such a long stretch while your season is technically in season? How do you stay sharp over a long layoff like that?
It's pretty tough, honestly. With the holidays and everything, it's pretty easy to fall out of shape if all you do is eat and hang out with family for the entire break. But Coach gives us a workout sheet, so as long as you can hit a couple workouts a week, just try to maintain that fitness that we worked so hard for the last couple months, then you can come back and hop right back into it. Yeah,
not eating over 6 weeks is something I think a lot of us struggle with during that period of time. Now, for you personally, your season really started on the right foot at the Franklin and Marshall Invitational back in December. You set personal indoor career best times in the 200 and 400. You were the runner-up in the 200 with a time of 22.95 seconds. You were fourth in the 400 with a time of 52.11. And your 200 time actually places you sixth in school history. Now, I know a lot of times that you don't always see athletes come right out and run your all-time best the first meet of the season. So just how are you able to come out so strong and compete so well right off the bat like that?
I think I can really attribute that to the summer regimen I did. I knew coming into the senior year that I really wanted to excel and do well this year. So I really focused on going to the gym and focusing on lifting and stuff like that. And then I would do workouts running once or twice a week. And then so I was in shape once I got back to school, and I could just get right into it.
So it was the work over the summer that really paid off for you.
Yeah.
Well, you specialize in the long sprints. We mentioned the 200 and the 400. And I think you've done, I would say, equally well, really, in both here at Gettysburg. But a lot of times athletes have a favorite event. So do you prefer either of those events? And if so, what or how does your racing strategy change in each of those events?
Well, the first time I ever ran track was in middle school, and they had me run the 400. So I would have to say that's probably my favorite event. And I sort of picked the 200 up later in my high school career, junior year, so I probably have a soft spot for the 400. But the 200 is more of just an all-out sprint. I don't really have time to think. It's just sort of a go and get to the finish line as fast as I can kind of deal. The 400 is a little bit longer, so I try to pace it out. I can normally see where I'm at and then judge how much faster I have to go based on where everyone else is at in the race.
So a little more strategy involved in the 400. And how does your training look throughout the year? And I guess, is it different for each of those events, or can you just take us through kind of what the training looks like for a long sprinter throughout the course of a year?
Normally during the summer, we try to focus more on lifting and building the base, so I'll do more of long runs, do 5Ks and stuff like that, just to try to get the cardio base that we need. And then when we get back to school, we focus more on the sprinting and building that fast endurance to last for the entire 400 meters.
So your season obviously is split into an indoor and outdoor segment. Obviously, you're just starting up with the indoor season right now. But as a competitor, how would you describe, I guess, some of the biggest differences between indoor and outdoor track, and what would you say are the kind of the biggest challenges or advantages maybe to competing inside versus outside?
Honestly, I'd probably have to say the biggest difference is having to deal with the weather outside. Indoors, you sort of know what you're going to get when you come to the meet. I'm going to have a game plan in place, how I think my races are going to go before I get there. Outdoors, it's sort of the day of kind of deal. It could be cold, it could be windy. You just sort of have to adapt when you get there and just sort of roll with it more than you do with indoor.
Tighter turns, though, for you as a sprinter, you have to kind of navigate those tight turns as a competing indoors.
Oh yeah, it's much more difficult indoors with those tighter turns, especially on the 400 when you have to do 2 laps on those tighter turns compared to outside where it's just 2 longer straightaways and 2 curves. But I sort of like the indoors because you don't have to stay in lanes the entire time, so it adds a little bit of an element of strategy to it that you don't have as much outdoors. So I sort of like that aspect of it, but I like both seasons pretty much.
Well, now you've been teammates really with some outstanding sprinters over the last 3 years, and not just sprinters. Really, several outstanding athletes have come through during your time here. Andre Hines, All-American discus thrower, and Jackson Davis, who was approaching a school record in the steeplechase. What kind of an impact would you say some of those teammates of yours who have had so much success? How did they impact you during your career?
I have to say, it really showed me the work ethic you need to succeed as an athlete in college. In high school, I don't know how it is for everyone, but for me personally, it was a lot more laid back than it was here. Our practices weren't as intense. So I was being able to see those guys when I first came here and see how much they worked and how much they had to put in to succeed really sort of showed me the way. Mm-hmm. And also, they accepted me to the team, which was big coming in as a freshman, not really knowing what to expect, and then just being so accepting really made it feel like a team. And that's probably what I would thank them most for.
Wow, it really sounds like you've had a great experience here, and not just on the track, but also, sounds like you get along quite well with your teammates, and it's a great atmosphere, it sounds like. Can you touch a little on the team this season? You talked a little bit about at the start, kind of about how things were going here in the first couple of weeks, but based on what you've seen, what do you think the team's biggest strengths will be as the season progresses this year?
I think this year, unlike years past, we have a lot more depth, which I think is going to be very helpful. I think overall we're going to have all around people in distance and sprints and throws, jumps that can succeed. But more depth is really helpful because it allows us, we don't have to run every single race every week. We can rest up some weeks, save ourselves for conferences if we have to. It just helps having a lot more depth that we can count on.
So you've talked a lot about your career here at Gettysburg and as a track athlete and relationships with teammates, but in general, if you had to sum it all up, what would you say you like the most about being a track and field athlete here at Gettysburg?
I would say probably being part of a team is probably the thing I'm thankful for being here. We do more than just run on a track together. We go out to eat, we hang out on the weekends together. It's really just a sense of family, really. And that's what I like about being on the track team here.
Well, every athlete has a story and about how they got to where they are. So I would just something I like to ask some of our student athletes occasionally is, what's your story? How did you hear about Gettysburg, and what brought you here?
Well, I come from a relatively small high school. It's probably less than half the size of Gettysburg. So I knew I wanted to jump up a little bit in size, but I knew I also wanted to keep that small class size. So we visited a lot of schools in our conference, Dickinson, Franklin and Marshall, Muhlenberg. But the one thing that stood out to me when I came to Gettysburg was just the atmosphere. When I talked to the coaches, I got just really good vibes. I guess that's the only way to explain it. So I sort of knew Gettysburg was the school for me. I applied early decision, and that was basically it.
Wow. So it worked out. So that's definitely a success story for sure. Last question. So you're a health science major. what are your plans beyond graduation? If you don't mind sharing, what you have coming up.
Well, I'm probably going to take a gap year and work as a physician's aide. Basically, take notes for the doctors so they don't have to during the day. And my plan after that is hopefully to attend medical school after that and just see where that goes.
All right. Well, thank you once again, Collin, for taking your time out this afternoon. And best of luck on Saturday at Lehigh and throughout the rest of the season and beyond graduation. We hope that gap year goes well for you. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, that's Collin Bergey of the Gettysburg College men's track and field team. The Bullets resume their indoor schedule this Saturday when they compete at the Lehigh University John Covert Classic. We'd like to thank you, our viewers, for following along here on Gettysburg Facebook Live this afternoon. You can watch an archive of this interview on the Gettysburg Athletics Facebook page shortly after the conclusion of this interview. So have a great day, and go Bullets.